I'm Stacy Grinsfelder.
And I'm Daniel Cantor.
And you're listening to True Tales from Old Houses, the Minisode.
A haunted minisode.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I have just been still laughing about last week's ghost story episode that we dropped. It has some really good stories in it.
I know.
I just can't stop laughing about some of them.
I think personally that ghost stories are evergreen, so just submit them. We can stockpile them for October. Maybe we'll just do a random ghost story episode in August or something. The possibilities are endless.
Well, before we launch in today's haunted minisode, as you called it, I would like to thank our minisode sponsor, Sutherland Wells.
Thank you, friends. We appreciate it. So what you been up to?
Well, last episode, we did really short project updates. We're going to do short ones again today. And I was mainly just gathering supplies. And that is exactly what's happening right now. Still gathering a few more supplies. We've had some really nice days. So I've been trying to do foundation work and last minute painting and planning on that sleeping porch and not really thinking about too much about what's on my to-do list. Just kind of staying in go mode. And just taking advantage of the nice days and soaking up vitamin D at the same time. I don't know if it happens where you are, but most of the people, I have heard from nutritionists that most people in this part of the country where I live, Western New York, probably Canada as well, that we are out of vitamin D by February if we rely on our own personal stores.
Wow.
This is not health advice for anyone.
This is our new health podcast.
Yes. But this is when I start thinking about vitamin D deficiency and all that. So, yes, it's good to get sun while you can.
Very wise. You're so smart.
I'm such a mom. That's what I am. I'm such a mom. I tell my kids, get outside and get some vitamin D. They're like, we're grown adults. Okay, well, you still need vitamin D.
Then you just like force feed them multivitamins.
What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Basically, the duplex. I've just been working away. I think I said this last time. Like, it's been actually feeling kind of good. Just not because I love working in there or anything, but just like being able to accomplish things quickly after like working on the cottage and just having everything be so detailed and labor intensive. And now like the stakes are a little lower. Everything's much more straightforward. So like I like presto have a kitchen in like 4 days. And I'm just like, this is great. So tiled a shower surround, fastest tiling I've ever done. I think I did it in like 6 hours.
Wow, that is fast.
Kitchen, I'm being a little held up by countertops. It's been a while since I got custom countertops, and boy, what a landscape it is out there. So that's challenging. So that's going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
So how long have you waited so far?
So I just paid for them, and yeah, so they said they'll come out and do a template and then they'll do the install. And I'm hoping that 4 to 6 weeks is like way on the long end so that people don't get fussy when it does take that long, but maybe it'll really be like 2 or 3 weeks. In my experience, countertops are usually like a 10-day turnaround from payment to install because they hold up a lot of other things. You can't put your sink in, you can't tile your backsplash, you can't, so
That's true.
I don't know. I'm hoping they come quickly. It's possible I will be renting this apartment with plywood countertops and just being like, you'll have your new ones in 2 weeks, but otherwise we're ready. Because at that point, it's like, if I can't get someone in there on December 1st, that's going to be upsetting.
Sure.
November 1st is not going to happen, but maybe November 15th is that feels totally achievable. So Anyway.
Do you notice something about us both this episode?
We're so pretty.
Well, we are so pretty, but no, what I noticed is that we feel a little lighter. I don't know how you feel, but I got actually quite a lot of feedback about our minisode where we were talking about burnout and days off and how we'd been feeling. And so many people had been saying the feedback was that they appreciated that episode because they had been feeling the same way. And, you expressed that you feel kind of happy working in the duplex because you're not overthinking it. And I am actually having the same kind of success here. at Blake Hill House by not overthinking it, just doing whatever's presented in front of me when the weather allows or when my supplies allow or whatever. And I don't know, I've just been feeling a little bit lighter emotionally overall.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I can't really say I'm with you, honestly.
Oh, okay.
Like yesterday, I went kerplunk and I basically couldn't do anything for most of the day. It was like we were saying on the Minisode, that scary feeling of like, is this going to be for another month or another 3 hours? I don't know, but like right now, I can't get off this sofa. So it was not good, but today is feeling better, and hopefully it stays feeling better.
That's good.
Yeah, it's just a busy time.
I did just take my 2 days off, and I take Sunday, Monday off, and Sunday, all I really did all day was lay around. Like I didn't have anything in me to do any sort of projects, not even like the basics. I think I ordered takeout too. I was like, yeah, I can't even do dinner. So I got
Yeah.
takeout. But then yesterday, all of a sudden, I just had a huge energy burst, and I got a lot of things done that were not on my to-do list and that I don't consider on my to-do list, just things that make me feel better.
It's like you used the energy that I didn't have yesterday. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it was a pretty busy weekend. My friend Juliet, who a lot of people who follow me on Instagram may know, she came and lived with me at the beginning of COVID, and we had a fun, weird few months together. But she's a musician, and her album actually drops November 3rd. This is not paid promo, but anyway, I'm excited for her. And she played 2 concerts up here. So I got to go see her 2 nights in a row, but I don't do stuff like that. So I was out, and then I was working on the duplex, and Sunday, like, I don't know, I hung the upper cabinets, I put in the fillers, I hung the range hood, I installed a whole new floor. It was probably too much for one day. And then I think Monday I just was done with everything. I crashed. I burned out, but I think I'm back.
Actually, and that's been a part of it too in the last few weeks that I've been trying to take these days off, is understanding too that I'm not always going to feel the same way every single day. That like any day that I show up is still 100%, whether it's 30% of the work I did yesterday or 10% or whatever. If I'm still showing up, I'm still there 100%. It's just that looks different each day, just depending on, I mean, it could be anything. If I got a good night's sleep, if I had good food, if a lot of things happened that were emotionally exhausting, all those things factor into how much energy we have each day to do physical labor.
Yes, agreed.
And of course, there's privilege involved in that, to be able to feel certain things and plan my life around how I feel. And that is absolutely the truth. But as we talk about burnout, I think just being honest, I guess, is maybe a really good, helpful first step.
Yeah, I mean, I think having a schedule that we mostly control and stuff, absolutely a privileged luxury. At the same time, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with its own challenges, and it doesn't really serve anyone to pretend that that's not true. We're human beings. Life is hard. Work is hard. Stuff is hard. We're getting through. Anyway,
we were going to talk about ghosts this episode, and I took us off on a tangent.
I've been real excited.
We had so much fun reading the ghost stories on the previous episode that I thought maybe we could do it again. We have a few leftovers. How does that sound, Daniel?
I will always read these ghost stories. I love them.
Okay, great. Let's do that first, and then we'll talk about things that have been happening in our own houses.
Should I go first?
Yes, absolutely.
So I mentioned this during episode 104, but if you didn't hear that, these stories actually came to me over Instagram, and at the time I was like reposting them but without the usernames, and so anybody who submitted these was expecting them to be shared anonymously, so that's why we're not sharing the name of the authors.
Okay, go ahead.
This person says, growing up, one of my best friends was a ghost. I only played with him at my aunt and uncle's house. Their house was built in the late 1800s on a wheat farm in Kansas. He was an old man who wore a gray suit. His name was Arkzuba.
The ghost.
Yes, the ghost name is Arkzuba. Rolls right off the tongue.
Creative.
He would walk around with me outside and play with me in one of the many rooms upstairs. He made sure I stayed out of trouble and just watched over me. Around the age of 8, he just disappeared. Years later, I was talking to said aunt and uncle about my imaginary friend, and my uncle described him exactly and said his name was Arkzuba and that he was a ghost that lived in the house with them. I had never heard him talk about it with anyone.
Wow.
I gotta go scream into a pillow for a while. Isn't that exciting?
That is a good one. I think you could chalk that one up to an imaginary friend, but with the uncle's confirmation, it's a little bit more concrete, isn't it?
It is. And I have to say, like, having received so many of these stories, that is such a common trope of kids that you would otherwise just be imaginary friend. And then it is in some other way confirmed that this is a real person, which I love this stuff. We'll talk about it in a minute, but
Okay.
do you have one? Tell me more.
I do. All right. This one's a little creepy too. She says, I used to work night shifts as a carer in an extremely old building, which became a residential home in England. This place had so much history that I wouldn't even know where to begin. I used to have this reoccurring nightmare that I turned a corner down one of the corridors, and each time there was something awful around that corner. There was a little old lady who never wanted to go to bed, and you guessed it, her room was in that section of the corridor. One evening, I walked her to her room, and she glanced around this corner with fear in her eyes. She shuddered and said, I hate coming up here. And that's when I realized that that's why she hung around with me all night. There was a number of weird things that happened in this place, but that shook me the most because it was just that energy that got into my head. And then she went on to say that that lady also had advanced Alzheimer's, but she could remember how afraid of her room she was living in that part
Right.
of the residential home. Isn't that scary?
Ooh, that's good. Sorry, not to be like I'm the paranormal expert now, but that is also a really commonly reported thing of elderly people, like as they get closer and closer to death, like start to see people from their past that have passed away. And I follow a hospice nurse on Instagram, and she talks about this sometimes. Like they'll reach up toward the ceiling as they're dying, even if they're nonverbal. And she's like, I've seen them do this for months before they, anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that.
What a specialized set of skills and caring a hospice nurse has to have.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And so much just the emotional strength of going through that over and over again, constantly. But she is at Hospice Nurse Penny, and she's a lovely person, and she's been a hospice nurse, and her thing is sort of destigmatizing the conversation around death, and this is a natural part of life. It happens, and it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom and something we don't talk about. So
thanks for that recommendation. I'm going to check it out. That does sound interesting to me. I know that I am much less fearful of death than I used to be. Thinking about the bookends of birth and death and all of that happens in between. Yeah, it just seems a less, like you said, just a part of life.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's a really big question that we were not supposed to discuss on today's episode, but do you believe in anything after death?
Boy, that is a good question. No. How do I put this? I guess I would say I don't know what's happening, and I don't necessarily need to know. I'm not living a life focused on what happens next. I'm living a life trying to be the best person that I can be here. So I don't know. I have no thoughts about what might be happening. I assume I'm going to be compost when I die. That's my assumption.
Right.
So from there, I don't know. How about you?
Well, I guess I don't know what I believe necessarily, but what I do believe, because I think it's pretty incontrovertible, is that there are phenomena that we cannot explain that happen consistently, globally, and, by the millions. So, like, for instance, near-death experiences. I was watching something recently and like CPR didn't really come around until like the 60s and 70s. So over the last 50, 60, 70 years, we've seen this massive, along with other medical care, we've seen this massive increase of people who can clinically die and then come back to life. So classic wisdom says once you are clinically dead, your heart is flatlined, there's no brain activity. That is the end of, your conscious experience. But there's this stunningly consistent sort of set of experiences that people who have had this experience have. And the only people who know what happens after death are people who have died. And we have this very small sample size, but people who, they consistently see bright lights, they consistently see beings or people from their past. There's these very typical experiences of this very atypical event. And it gives me chills. I love it. And I think it's really cool because it is consistently described as a like peaceful, positive, blissful experience. And that is reassuring in a way. No matter what you believe, whether it's true, not true, whatever, it is undeniable that it is a phenomenon that exists. People report these experiences. People have these testimonies. So like, I just love it. I just think it's really interesting. I don't know. I think sometimes we get closed off to like learning about things because we don't believe them. And it's like, well, what if you just set that aside for a second and just sort of explore the idea or what compels people to find this interesting? Like maybe that's a way to think about it. True Tales from Old Houses minisodes are supported by Sutherland Wells. All of Sutherland Wells products are handcrafted in Providence, Rhode Island with the highest quality sustainably grown tung oil. Tung oil, native to China, has been used for centuries as a durable finish for wood, metal, and stone.
And unlike polyurethane, tung oil finish penetrates the surface of the wood so it flexes and contracts as the conditions change. And that makes it the perfect pre-finish or protectant for everything from fine furniture to window sash and sills.
Sutherland Wells has an entire product line for whatever you're working on right now, whether it's siding, hardwood floors, furniture restoration, cutting boards, you name it.
To learn more about the complete product line, visit Sutherland Wells, WELLES, sutherlandwells.com, and to save 10% on your first order, use our coupon code TrueTales. So speaking of totally rational people experiencing things in their house, may I tell you something that happened here to me?
Oh, are you calling yourself totally rational?
Totally rational. There's no argument about that. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Kidding.
Well, during episode 104, my son came on and told all these things that had happened to him. And I've previously told ghost stories on the podcast about my missing hammer. And I've talked about what happened to me in the May Stringer House Museum in Florida. Basically anything that's happened along the way. But recently something did happen that had not occurred before. And it's very short and sweet. So here's what happened. I woke up in the middle of the night and I smelled breakfast cooking. And I thought, well, that's really strange. Like, what time is it? So I looked at the clock and it was about 3:30 in the morning. Nobody would have been up at that time to be making breakfast. So I got up and I looked out the door just to see if the kitchen light was on. And no, kitchen light is not on. And then I'm not that close to my neighbors, but just out of curiosity, I peek out the window, both sides, just to see, if somebody was up or if the lights were on or it looked like some activity, but absolutely nothing. And so it smelled like pancakes first, pancakes and maple syrup. And then it smelled like bacon. And I don't know what that was, but then I just went back to bed and that was it.
Stoner ghost.
Yeah.
Who else makes pancakes at 3:30 in the morning?
Right. Or bacon.
Right. Wow. And sorry, when was this?
I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
Ooh. Had it ever happened before?
No, I mean, I had, like I said, I'd smelled that grandpa smell before
Right.
in the basement and in the closet. That was more of an earthy sort of body smell, but I had never smelled actual food because I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like that's breakfast. Why do I smell breakfast?
That is so weird. Ooh, I love it. I love it.
My mom was recently visiting and we were telling her all these stories and she was trying to be so polite. Like I still don't know exactly what she thinks. Like she does not believe in ghosts. Like, nah, I don't believe in ghosts. And I don't know what
Mhm.
she'd say to your question about the afterlife. Her religion believes in some sort of afterlife. So I would guess that she thinks that it's a real possibility, but definitely not. She doesn't go for the ghost thing. But we were telling her, and she was just like, she had this little kind of look on her face, like being polite, nodding her head, being polite. But I don't know. I don't know what she thought about us telling her our stories. But I was telling her the breakfast one. She said, that's really weird.
Right. I mean, I guess I feel like too. It's like if you're so closed off to it, you can't even have fun with the story. Like, what a bummer way to be. I don't know. Just enjoy the ride of what other people have to say about it. I don't know.
I do think she enjoyed the stories. She enjoyed the ride. She's a happy person.
She is. She's a lovely person. I love her. Oh, did we even tell people?
We never told people.
There will be minisodes coming up of Stacy and I both interviewed our mothers on the podcast.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's going to be
I
fun.
can't wait. I was gonna say like I've never had cooking smells, but I've had some other weird stuff over the years. Would you like to hear about some of them?
I do. I want to know.
People who have followed my house journey for a long time may recall that the prior occupant of my home passed away here and remained here for a little while till he was discovered. And so I think it's an easy assumption that he would haunt, but I actually don't. I don't know why I have this sense. I don't think that if somebody's haunting this house, it's him. I think it's an original owner. So when I first moved in, there were a number of times where I'd be laying in bed really late at night and very, very clearly somebody was walking up the stairs and like down the hall and closing doors downstairs. And it happened several times. And a couple times it was so pronounced that I was positive somebody broke into the house and like pulled out my phone, had 911 dialed, like was like ready to, and then I would like peek out and then it was silence. And then I'd just kind of be like, well, they're not in the room. So I guess, there's not much of value here yet. So take whatever and don't kill me. And then, of course, nothing was ever moved or changed or anything. Clearly, nobody had been in the house. So that would happen a fair amount. And that stopped maybe after a couple months. And then years later, just a couple like weird things have happened. So a few years ago, it was Halloween and I was in the kitchen with my ex and we were talking about something and I don't remember what we were talking about, but I said for whatever reason, in context, I'm sure it made sense. I said the words dead baby.
In context.
I swear it made sense. Uh, and the
Gotcha.
second I said it, I hear a crash from the next room and a painting that had been hanging on the wall in my dining room for years, just hanging there for years, fell, hit the back of a chair, ripped in half. Like it was kind of dramatic and ruined this really beautiful painting that I still don't know what to do with to this day. So like that happened. One time I was going to walk into a room and I don't even remember which room, but I remember it happening so distinctly where the door was open a little bit and I went and reached for the handle and it just slammed in my face, slammed closed.
Oh,
And
wow.
like, I just sort of paused and I looked at it and I was like, well, that was really weird. And there are no doors or windows open in the house. It wasn't a draft thing. And
I do have this closet below the stairs and it has a door that never will stay shut. And it
mm,
actually, like, you can close it and latch it. And then as soon as you start to walk away, like, the handle will just like pop open and it'll open about an inch or two.
mm,
So we've always kind of joked about, whoever's living under the stairs does not like the complete darkness. We've always said that jokingly. I don't know.
Spooky.
Yeah, that is a little spooky, but
Well, in my basement, one of the stones, I forgot about this, on the foundation, it's basically like right at the bottom of the stairs when you walk into the basement. There's this big, very square stone in the foundation, and it just has all these like hatch marks on it that like very much
days
look
in
like
captivity.
days endured in the
Yeah.
basement. It's super creepy. And I don't know. It's just there. I don't think about it, but it's there.
I don't really have anything else to share. Do you have anything else to share?
I mean, not really. I have all kinds of theories and ideas and ways that maybe I'm reincarnated from a former occupant of this house. I go down that rabbit hole sometimes mentally, but that feels like a lot to get into.
Maybe a deeper conversation than a minisode. Should we leave by maybe reading one more story each, a little ghost story to end this spooky month?
That's a perfect bookend to cut me off. Please cut me off. Okay.
I'll read the first one. How's that?
Yes.
All right. My boyfriend had gone out of state for the weekend in January a couple of years ago, so I had the house to myself for the first time ever. Late that Saturday night, I was sitting on the couch in my underwear with the cat, which I get that. You're alone. Hang out with the cat in your underwear. Sure. When I heard the loudest thuds on my garage door I've ever heard. My cat goes flying and hides. I don't have any lights on, and my phone is about to die. We are living in the country with no immediate neighbors, and being that I'm in Illinois in midwinter, it is, of course, blizzard conditions. And remember, again, she is in her underwear.
Mm-hmm.
I was so sure I was going to die. I decided to just meet whoever it was in the garage. Now, when I read the story, what's the first?
No.
No, you don't ever go towards the thing, right? Isn't that what they do in horror movies?
Yeah, I don't call the police.
911 people.
Do not meet whatever it is in the garage without, pants or a weapon. It's a bad plan. Okay, but we're not here to criticize.
She says, I whip open the door, but no one is there. So I go back inside, check out all the windows to see if I can see footsteps in the snow, and 2 more loud thuds. I ran outside to my car screaming, get out of here. Actually, she said, get the out of here, and left for the night. And when I got back in the morning, I checked everywhere surrounding the house. No footsteps, no tree branches or anything that could have hit the house. Literally no possible explanation. It sounded exactly like someone was throwing their entire body weight up against the garage door. And every time I remember seeing how scared my cat was, it gives me a chill. And I still have a hard time when my guy goes out of town. Creepy, creepy. Yeah. The only thing that keeps me not personally invested in the story and like totally freaked out is the fact that it was blizzard conditions, which means the snow could have blown around, the tracks could be covered, it could have been someone playing a practical joke. You just never know.
I mean, that in and of itself is terrifying, though. I
True.
can't decide if a spirit or a actual person making that sound is scarier.
Yeah.
Honestly,
true.
I think it's an actual person.
All right, bring it home, Daniel. Bring it home.
When we bought our house, it was a dump of an 100-year-old row house that needed a full gut. My husband ended up doing it himself and got burned out. So it would take 6 months sometimes for the drywall to get sanded and painted. We still don't even have baseboards. And we felt this weird sense that we weren't alone in the house. Nothing happened like doors slamming or things being moved, but felt it for sure. Our daughter started talking about the nice old man who said goodnight to her before she fell asleep.
Your favorite kind of story.
My favorite. And there's so many of them. Sorry. And then one night at 3 a.m., when my husband was going to the washroom through the unfinished hallway, he heard a voice saying, "You're not going to leave it like that, are you?"
The ghost is a nag. I get it.
The ghost is very picky about finish work. Both of our next door neighbors were elderly women who told us about the people who'd owned our house before us. It turned out that about 40 years ago, Mr. Mooney, everyone's favorite neighbor and a lovely man who helped neighbors with their home improvement projects, had died of a heart attack in the living room.
Oh my gosh.
And now he visits her 3-year-old daughter.
And now he judges finish work. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I mean, that's totally the type of ghost I'm going to be like, you sure about that?
Yeah. I'm going to completely haunt people if they try to take the windows out of this house someday. If I'm dead, like I'll just be like,
yeah.
what are you doing, people? I'm going to come out of those weight pockets and wreak havoc on the occupants.
There is another story in here. Somebody was working on a window and they saw the reflection of a ghost and then the glass shattered.
Oh, that is creepy. All right. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that's dangerous. I'm not a dangerous ghost.
I'll hunt the moldings. If somebody tries to rip out these moldings, it will not be good for them. Bye.
All right, we got to wrap it up for today. So thank you for listening to True Tales from Old Houses, the very spooky minisode. That's all we've got for you this October. Until next time.
Stay spooky. See you next week.